This is NBC from studios at Richmond Hill in Kingstown with the frequencies of 107.5 and 90.7 FM. We welcome all those who have joined us via other social media platforms. We're joined in studio this morning by Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves and online by seismologist Richard Stewart. That should be Rod Stewart and Professor Richard Robertson. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Richie, and good morning, Rod. I just, and everyone who is listening, I don't know if Roderick Stewart, whose name I believe is spelled like the rock star, whether he has any rock star status. I don't know, presumably in seismology, I don't know if he can sing anywhere near. And you know all those popular love songs by Rod Stewart?
Yeah, he's a seismological rock star.
He's a seismological rock star. All right. When I saw him, I didn't think that he had the leg moves of Rod Stewart.
Sorry?
I didn't think that he had the dance moves with the legs, like the original Rod Stewart.
I do not want to be disrespectful at this point, but I have heard all these jokes many times before.
But do you have any facility to move on your legs on the dance floor? Good morning, Rod.
Good morning, gentlemen. As we continue with our program today, let's, as usual, recap from yesterday and come right into today before we start speaking and fielding questions.
Right, so Rod will get the update.
Okay. And there's really not much to report. Since yesterday, in terms of earthquake activity, it's been very quiet. We've been having occasional volcano tectonics, occasional long-period earthquakes, no sign of tremor. So it's very, very quiet. The problem we've got is trying to compare this to before the explosions happened. Because in December, January, February, when we were having very gentle dome growth, the only signals we saw then were recorded on a station near the summit. Now that station's been destroyed by the eruption. So we don't know if those small events are occurring at the moment. But ignoring that, we're not having any of the events that we've been seeing throughout this explosion series. So that's a good point. It shows that the volcano's not got a lot of stress inside it. Last night, we recorded another signal from a lahar on, we think, the eastern side of the volcano. We expect to record these from time to time. But really, seismically, it's quiet. The other thing to report is that we did an observation flight yesterday in a fixed-wing aircraft. Conditions were not very good when we were up there. It was very cloudy, but we got some views of the crater. We got some photographs, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of a dome at the moment. We did see a lot of steaming. There's at least 2 vents that are there. We think we saw a spine as well. But we'll be continuing to pick up information on this as we go by and try and work out what's happening inside the crater. Maybe, Richie, you want to say something about the photos I brought back.
Right, yeah. I think people always wondering how it looks now inside there, and I'll try to give you a picture. Most people, when they went to the Soufriere, would have seen a dome in the middle, a big open area, the dome, and then there's a flat floor, there's a lake on the right side, and then in between December and until the explosion started, you had a new dome grow, right? And so therefore you had 2 domes in there. Now what you will have, when you go up then you will see no dome. What you will see is an open crater that goes down quite a ways down, so it's like an inverted cone, top of a cone, inverted, right? So the opening is at the top. And that crater, you will see, if you go up on the windward side, you would look across, and where you saw the dome growing before in 2020, 2021, that's kind of more or less, you can think of that as the epicenter of where the crater is. But you have a huge crater that goes out for a couple hundred meters in terms terms of width. And in it, it's sort of had a, so it's deeper now than the pre-existing crater floor, right? And in it, you have sort of loose material. You have two pits, two sort of little pits, which Rod mentioned, two vents, and it is there. A lot of the steaming is happening. A lot of the steaming also happening to the northern side, sort of closer to the side where you have the 1812 and where you have the 1979 dome. And that pit, along the rims of that pit, along the rims of that pit is loose material that has come out, or tephra or ash that has come out. And the ash was built up so high that on the side that is on the Larrakai side, where the lower lip of the crater was, that teph ring is such high that it's as high as the Larrakai side of the crater rim was. So in fact, now you could walk all the way from the windward side all the way around, and you could essentially walk into the crater without actually going on the road, because the material is built up so much, the cone that is around the hole has built up so much on one side that it is right next to where the rim of the crater is. So that's what you'll see if you go up there. There's a lot of steaming going on from two vents, as Rod said. There's a part of it where you have a large mass of rock that sticks up. We call it a spine. It looks like a black pillar that's up towards the northwestern side. And then on sort of the northern side, if you're looking across to the northern side of the crater, you can have a lot of steaming in some areas where you have some probably remnants of the 1979 dome. But essentially what you have is a big open crater in the middle of a pre-existing crater. You wouldn't see any domes. What you have is a crater with lots of ash and lots of loose material around. And the edge of one of the craters is so high that it actually comes up to the lip of the pre-existing crater rim. That in the old days, you used to have to take a rope to go down. Now you could just walk all the way around and get into the crater, it's interesting if it actually ends up being like that, because it means that, yeah, you're probably going to have more visitors than you like up there.
Now, what's the significance of the steaming through the two vents?
You can do that. Well, I think it just means that you have some hot material still close to the surface, first of all. Which is what would be expected. Even if it doesn't stop doing what it's doing now with the explosion, you would expect that you have some sort of heat source, magma. There's still beneath the surface somewhere. It's probably cooling down, giving off a lot of gas. Most of the gas is going to be water. But also the steaming is because of the fact that you also might have a little bit of water, both in the magma itself. I don't know if there's any water in the ground still. But a lot of the steaming is coming from the magma essentially degassing. And it because you have so much loose material there, sometimes it kind of gets, the place where the steam comes out gets blocked. So it has created two little explosion craters where pockets of steam will come up. So the steam is really telling you that the volcano is degassing, freely in a big way. And a lot of it is just water, really.
And those two vents are probably joined together not that far below the surface.
Yes, yeah.
They're not separate conduits. They'll just be.
I see.
The surface. Yeah.
Now, what is the significance of not having, that you hardly have any seismic activity to report since the last eruption on the 22nd? That's now 5-6 days ago.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that?
The significance is that there's really two possible explanations, because these earthquakes happen when stresses build up. So either there are no stresses being built up within the volcano, or the rock is sort of being fractured and moved so much that it's become like jelly. It can't react to stress. But I think the main thing is that there are no stresses within the volcano being built up. And that's a good thing, because the stresses are what we would expect to see if we were going to have more explosions.
I see. Now, Richie, as a result of both observations, and I listened to you carefully about the significance of the vent, the two interconnected vents,
Yeah.
and that what is coming out there is really steam, and that the magma is degassing. which you said is a good thing, and then there is no seismic activity to report of any real importance. What are the policy implications of that, of those two things? Is it too early to say that the people, for instance, in the orange zone and the lower end of the lower end of the red zone can go back and clean up?
Well, I think all of the cautious about people going back into the red zone. But certainly the people in the orange zone, the market is telling us that it's entered this period where there's no clear indication that it's stressing itself out as it's heading into explosion. Of course, things can change quite rapidly. So that's why we have to be cautious. So yeah, there are certain areas in the orange zone that would only in any case have been affected by heavy ashfall, and we're not having heavy ashfall now. So yes, cleanup in those areas would be a good idea now when it's not exploded. In terms of the red areas, I would certainly not suggest any movement north of the Rabaka Dry River. Putting people in the mountains is a bad idea. Certain areas of the red zone, the southern parts, if you're looking at sort of Georgetown areas, certain parts of Georgetown, yes, I think that kind of thing in terms of cleanup is possible once it's not exploding. But that indicates you always have to bear, and people, if they do that, have to bear in mind that you may have to react quickly if it then picks back up and goes into explosion. You can't, it's not stressing and easy gas, it's a good thing.
You see, as a practical person,
yeah.
when you speak, people are going to ask me, okay, you say Georgetown. Do you mean Georgetown, which stops at Caratal River going north, or you mean that the Georgetown conurbation, which ends at Rabaka?
No, I would say the Caratal one.
The Caratal one, okay. So you're talking about Georgetown proper, Georgetown, Chile, coming down Chester Cottage, Byra, Goss, Connery Park Hill, South Rivers.
Right, so avoid it as much as possible, because the issue with the Rabaka is that the Rabaka is prone to lahars in addition to, so even when the volcano is not doing anything as it is now, there's always a problem with lahars. So
the mud flows.
The mud flows, right.
and you say that one was, there's evidence that one is reported.
Yeah, I mean, it might be Rabaka, might be somewhere else close by. Yeah.
All right. Now, on the leeward side,
yeah,
how far would you go to advise cleanup?
I would say sort of south of Chateaubelair.
So from Pitibodel upwards?
Upwards, yeah, those areas there. I mean, people have been cleaning up their roofs in Georgetown, in Chateaubelair, I know that. But when you get into those areas, you kind of get into areas that get in a little bit more on the marginal side, even at the activity levels now.
Okay.
So certainly in these areas, once you get rid of the ash in places like Belmont, where we are, Chumaka, once it's not exploded, those are areas that people could occupy safely.
You mean actually occupy in Rose Hall?
Yeah, because you're not, once the key thing is the explosions and the heavy ash, because these areas were never going to be compromised by pyroclastic flows.
Could you occupy as far north as Pitibodel?
I mean, I would say that you probably want to clean up.
Okay then. No, I just
call area, that kind of thing.
Okay. So can people occupy back to Rosebank?
Yeah, I mean, I think those areas are mainly, once you deal with the ash, there's a lot of ash still in the area.
Okay.
So once you deal with the ash, I think I mean, those areas are not in, there's always the potential that it could stand back up, and therefore once people realize that it starts back up, you have to move out again.
Okay.
But in terms of practically what's happening now, it's really just the conditions of the ash that's really most hazardous.
No, there is an issue. As you know, I have to think about all public policy issues. Yeah. You take an area like Chateaubelair, where we have to be careful that we don't leave it open for persons who want to burglarize people's places. Would it be too early for policemen to go back in the Chateaubriand police station?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to leave it a little bit longer.
Okay, I just want to find out. I mean, we have to do security, but I just want to know.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't mean you can do patrols. You don't have to. The thing is to overnight occupation and stay in there for extended period.
Okay, I'm understanding what you're saying. I just want to be clear to get guidance.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the Commissioner of Police is also listening.
I mean, I think the thing with volcanic hazards is to minimize your exposure by decreasing the amount of time that you're exposed to the thing that might put you in harm's way. So, yeah, that's why, as scientists, we do work sometimes in areas on the volcano, but we minimize the impact and we have certain protocols we operate under. If you have that, it's possible to do things. So, in areas that are like you mentioned Chateaubriand and the areas like that, you could check as a patrol and you come back out. You just don't stay there. You don't stay over.
Yes.
So in terms of people occupying, I would think that you don't want to get into those areas quite yet, because you're not sure if it's going to start back up.
Maybe just as far down. Maybe just as far down as Rosebank.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. That's an option. Yes.
And clean up in Georgetown up to Caratal.
Yeah.
What about occupying Georgetown? Or not yet?
At that point, I would stay out in the red zone completely.
Okay, all right. In terms of occupation, but they can go up to Georgetown, Caratal to clean up.
That's a different thought. That's a different.
Okay, no. I just because we are having a meeting this evening of the National Emergency Management Council, and tomorrow I have cabinet. So, and I'm sure that Michelle would get something from you, Michelle Forbes, to inform us this afternoon, because I will call on her to give a report in this regard. But I'm glad you're proffering this kind of advice. In other words, there's some hopeful news, but we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key thing, that people can't, I keep saying people can't drop the guard. We need to make sure that it's really heading in a particular direction before we do that. And there's a lot of work, there's some work that can be done even in interim, but people need to be prepared that it can pick back up again and it can pick back up quickly, and therefore we'll have to respond to that.
Okay. Usually, if things are picking up back, how many hours notice we will have?
See, psychologists looking up to the sky. Easy 1 hour to answer that question. But remember that at this point in time, unfortunately, our network is not as optimal as we would like.
Yes.
As we did last time. Last time we said we couldn't give you certain kinds of time frames, and
yes.
Way. I mean, there's no guarantee that would happen again. So I think it's best to be cautious.
Okay.
At least in the next few weeks or so, and let's see if it keeps quiet. If it keeps quiet, that question will be easier to answer, I think, as we go on.
Okay. All right.
I think Roderick brought up an answer for you.
My answer to that question, how much time would you have, is enough. That's my answer. It could be as little as hours. It could even be reaction to something that's happening at the summit. You might actually see activity.
Okay.
And then you want to take out. But but it's short notice that people might have to move out.
Okay then. All right. Hours. All right.
Yeah, bear that in mind.
All right. Dion, any query from online?
Well, I think, Prime Minister, the general queries there, persons asking if they can go back to the village, the same discussion that we're having right now.
Yes. Well, the summary for them out of this discussion, you don't go back and reoccupy any red zone area, including Georgetown, but you can safely go up to Caratal and clean up, but don't stay overnight. And then you can go and up in Belmont where they are in Rose Hall, Trumoka, and you can go down to Rosebank and move to Rosebank, but bearing in mind, clean up and move back, but bearing in mind that you'd only have at most a few hours, and clean up in Pittibadel, but don't go Pittibadel. Isn't that the broad advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you can use the time to clean. The other thing too is that you need to, I think you need to make sure that you know the numbers of people and things like that, so that if you have to respond, you know your people, you know what kind of numbers you have to deal with.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, I think that's generally
why I asked specifically about Chateaubriand? I mean, I got the overnight security report, and there is a small group of persons. I'm not going to say the numbers and so forth, who went there and broke in 4 or 5 houses, and stole some pieces of electronic equipment and things like that. I haven't got the full report yet. You remember very early I said that when I flagged the security issue, I said that every disaster at some point raises frontal the question of security, because you or invariably every disaster raises it. And because you always have 1 or 2 persons who are criminally minded, some antisocial elements who in a sense are a step or 2 ahead of the seismologists. They begin to make judgments a little ahead of you, because their activity involves certain risks, and they're assessing risks, which and therefore we have to respond in making those risks more problematic for them in terms of our security apparatus. You understand the point?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in a lot of the areas, like even certainly in places like Chateaubriand and Petitblair, there's a lot of cleanup of the roads and stuff that needs to be done even before people move in that direction. So there's a lot of cleanup on the roads. I think they've reached now, it looks like Rosebank or something like that. I saw that there.
Yes. Well, there's a lot more as you go further northwest.
Yeah.
A lot more. There's a significant amount in Chateau.
So I mean, I think even in terms of people thinking of reoccupying spaces like that, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of cleaning ways. And otherwise, if you don't get rid of the ash, it's going to be remobilized. And one of the key things, I mean, I think as you move forward, to bear in mind is that we head in fast to the rainy season. And if you don't get rid of a lot of that stuff on the ground, it's going to now start causing damage to the structures and the places. So
yes,
I think as much as during this time, even if you either occupy or to move selectively to clear things and clean things.
Yes.
That's a sensible thing to do.
Yes. Okay.
There's one question. Is it possible that after all the eruptions and activities, can the volcano become an active one?
Become a what?
Can become an active one.
Well, it is an active volcano. It's a live volcano. I don't quite get that. It is pretty much somebody questioning whether it's active or not.
Well, that's the question. I mean, sometimes when you tell people that you don't want to ask the question, people insist.
It probably means that if it goes to sleep a little bit, whether it would be awoken on it by itself.
Or probably more active
Yeah, maybe we misunderstand what the person is asking. So let me try to answer if I think so. Volcanoes, people use different terms to describe volcanoes. They use active, inactive. They use extinct and dormant and things like that. And it kind of gets confusing. So at seismic, we tend to try to be very simple. Whether the volcano is alive or it's dead. Simple. If it's alive, then we think it could erupt. It might be that it's erupting now. It might be that it's not erupting now. But we still think it's live. And if we think it's live, then we operate a certain way. If we think it's dead, then it can't do anything. So we don't get into. So I'm sorry if if what the person is asking is if this volcano could erupt again, and if this volcano is one that's going to be dangerous in the future. Yes, it's alive. It's very much alive. It showed us a little bit of its kick. Just a little bit. It might show us a little bit more in the future. we hope that it's gone back a little bit to be a little bit quiet for the time being, but it's certainly not dead. So I think that helps to answer the question because it's answered.
Are the volcanoes, Richie, are the volcanoes in Martinique and Dominica dead or alive?
They're alive. I mean, some of the Caribbean islands have hundreds of years between actual eruptions, but they're active all the time. It's just their natural time period is hundreds of years. And Montserrat is like that. Even places like Ceiba, they're considered active volcanoes, even although no one's ever seen an eruption at them.
Yeah.
So every volcano from Grenada in the south, Ceiba in the north, is considered active. Every active volcano is active.
Yeah.
There's also a bunch of dead volcanoes on those islands as well.
But I think also when it goes to say when you say active,
Yeah.
what Rod is meaning is that the live volcanoes that we have, you either have earthquakes, you have fumaroles, you have something that's saying that they are live.
There's heat.
Yeah, there's always something happening.
Yeah.
Even though they're not erupting, there's always something happening on them.
Okay, I get it. Now, it's dead when you pronounce it dead when you don't get any of your seismic signals which will tell you it's alive.
Yeah. Anything. When it's old rocks, when you don't have any seismic signals, when we don't have any kind of indication in any way that it has hot material, as Rod said, down below that wants to come up.
So this one, we won't be around to pronounce it dead.
Yeah.
It will be pronounced dead by, I don't know.
By several decades from now.
More than that.
Yeah, I don't know if our grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren will be around when this volcano is considered dead. It's pretty much I don't say it's not even middle age yet, this volcano.
I see. Interesting. Well, we carry the benefit of our volcanic creation with our burdens.
Yeah.
Huh?
Indeed.
Did you say indeed?
No, yeah, well, yes.
Yes.
We live with it.
We live with it, and we have to live with it. And I'm saying that in the Caribbean, we have many, many generations. As much as we would like, we have many generations that will have to live with them because this volcano and the volcanoes in the region are pretty young, those that are alive.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll hear from you tomorrow, God's willing.
No, I know that yesterday I got a call from the Office of the High Commissioner designate to St. Vincent and the Grenadines from Canada. Her Excellency Lillian Chatterjee. And they indicated that they will call in at some time to speak towards Canada's response to what is happening here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the volcano. I don't know if her office is on the line, but they're listening.
They're ready, Prime Minister.
Oh, they're ready. Okay, let's
so they can go ahead.
let's roll then. Thanks.
They just sent a message to say they're ready, so they can go ahead and call and we'll
Yes.
facilitate the call.
Thanks.
So in the meantime, Prime Minister, you can continue until the
Yes.
call comes up on the system.
Well, I just want to welcome the HMBS Lawrence Major. This is a vessel from Bahamas and Jamaica with supplies.
Commissioner? Okay, just hold, please. Hold on, please.
Hello? Her Excellency is on?
Yes, please, Prime Minister.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
HMBS Lawrence.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning, Prime Minister. I've been watching you on this radio program for some time now, and I think it's such a vital program because it gives very important information to your citizens and to people like us who have been following it. So first of all, Prime Minister, I give you greetings from Canada.
Thank you.
Our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister are very engaged what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you sent a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau, and we will respond shortly based on his response to your letter. But in the meantime, Prime Minister, you spoke to our Foreign Minister, Minister Garneau, Marc Garneau, and he instructed us, following your call to him, that we must respond immediately with support for humanitarian assistance. So I'm very, very pleased to announce that Canada is contributing for the immediate need $440,000, of which $250,000 will go to the World Food Program, and $190,000 will go to St. Vincent and Grenadines organizations. Three of them: Rapid Relief Team (SVG), the World Pediatric Project Caribbean, and the SVG Red Cross through the International Federation of Red Cross. And that is to help to focus on the basic needs of displaced people, to provide food, hygiene supplies, drinking water, clothes, shoes, and also to address some of the health concerns, respiratory supplies like nebulizers, ventilators, air purifiers, oxygen tanks, and other medical needs. And Prime Minister, I have to say, I have a lump in my throat when I think we have been supporting SVG for a long time, and one of the projects that we funded was the Richmond Vale Academy, I did a virtual tour because I couldn't come because of the pandemic. I did a virtual tour of their project. They were producing home gardens in Chateau Bel Air, Fitzhughes, Rose Hall, Spring Village, and they were helping people develop these home gardens for themselves. And when I see the videos, I'm so brokenhearted to think that all of that must have been destroyed. I did that virtual tour with Stina Herberg, and I was so impressed with their dedication and their initiative, and I just feel so sad to see what has happened and the impact that this volcano has wreaked, not just for that project, but for the citizens. And I'm in awe of Vincentians, your resilience, and your, you've dealt with the COVID pandemic, you've suffered economic hardship because of that, and now this on top of that. You Vincentians really are a very resilient group of people, and I'm so impressed, and especially with your leadership, Prime Minister. And you are really showing wonderful leadership in addressing the concerns of your people.
Well, I'm very grateful for all that Canada is doing to help us, and I want you to please give your distinguished foreign minister my warm regards, and of course our friend Justin, the Prime Minister. Make him to know that we love him very much, and we're looking forward to a continued partnership, particularly in the recovery and the reconstruction phase. And the organizations which you have chosen to provide the $440,000 Canadian to, certainly the public would know that the World Pediatric Project it's a very important project, and I'm glad they are getting some funding from you. And the World Food Program is here with us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, working, helping us with some of the coordination, in fact all the UN agencies. So we're very grateful for the assistance to those institutions which do good work for the people, which are doing good work for the people. I want everybody to realize, to whom I'm speaking, that we in the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we ask governments to support in this humanitarian phase, especially organizations which are doing good work and which need the support, like for instance the World Food Program, like for instance the World Pediatric Project, and the resources don't have to come in a phase where we are all doing humanitarian work together to the government, but to organizations with which we partner in order to make life bearable for persons in this very difficult period. The same thing in an earlier stage when I think some support was provided to Red Cross, who are assisting in providing food packages and the like, other things. And they work well with NEMO, our National Emergency Management Organization. Now, I just want to indicate to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that I in my letter to Prime Minister Trudeau, I kept the matter to three issues. One, immediate humanitarian relief, and you are providing that through these organizations, and we always would like to get more support because the humanitarian relief period is going to be very prolonged, and I take it that you will continue to partner with us in this period. And secondly, a partnership during the recovery and reconstruction phase, and that I had raised the issue possibly for consideration of certain evacuees who meet certain criteria, whom Canada may wish to accommodate on certain particular terms. And I'm sure that I hear from all of those from my dear friend Justin, the Prime Minister.
Well, Prime Minister, I will let my Prime Minister respond to you on your letter. I can assure you we are hard at work looking at a response. Canada has been with you a long time. We were there before the eruption of the volcano. We've been there with you during this difficult time in your hour of darkest need, and we will be there afterwards. We will always be there to accompany you. I think that you can always count on Canada.
I believe that, and I have the evidence of that, and I want to thank you and the government and people of Canada very sincerely. And I want to thank you for the kind words that you said about our people's resilience, which is true, which goes back centuries. It's in our DNA. And I want to thank you for the kind words that you have said about our leadership.
You're very welcome, and good luck, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you very much, and God bless you, the government and people of Canada. And please, don't forget to send a special greeting to the Foreign Minister and to my dear friend Justin.
I will do that immediately. Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
I'm really touched by this particular call. Dion, it could have been done in the usual way through diplomatic channels, but I thought that the idea of communicating directly to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Her Excellency, it was very thoughtful, and we appreciate it. And I just want to say that I didn't initiate that she make this call. I was at my office yesterday, and when her political advisor at the High Commission called to say that Her Excellency would like to call in on the program. It also tells you that the Richie and Ralph show is reaching far and wide. and I'm sure that she probably has broken ground, and which other ambassadors and other leaders may wish to emulate. Now, I was saying there's a Bahamian military vessel, the HMBS Lawrence Major. It's both the government of the Bahamas and the government of Jamaica have supplies on this. And I just want to indicate that it is not just the governments themselves, but in the case of Jamaica, a number of other agencies. In the Bahamas, of course, is the government of the Bahamas, the Defense Force in the Bahamas, and their National Emergency Management Agency. And in the partners of the government of Jamaica, in addition to the various state institutions, it's the Jamaica Red Cross, Kingston Wharves Limited, the private sector organization of Jamaica, Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Food for the Poor in Jamaica, the Jamaican Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, Grace Kennedy Limited, Lasco Distributors Limited, Wisinco Group, and the Home Choice Enterprise Limited. And they've provided a lot of items, the main items, of course, being canned foods, general purpose tents, some bottled water, cots, mattresses, and some other items. The two ministers, Sabota Caesar and Carlos James, are greeting them because I would have liked to have gone there, but I'm here. I can't be two places at the same time. But I will follow up the estimated value of the shipment is about 165,000 US dollars, which we are very grateful for, which would get to the people. I just want to make sure that that NEMO, I think NEMO should, in addition to all what would go to persons in shelters and the like, you notice that there's a Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And they know that their dogs and cats and so forth, in addition, of course, to larger animals, but they have on the list some cat food, some dog food, and some puppy food. So I'm sure that NEMA will get those to the partner organization for the Jamaica Society for the Prevention, the SVG Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And it's very thoughtful that in addition to thinking about human beings, we have to also think about the animals. Not just the animals which we can sell and eat, like the cattle, the sheep, the goats, the pigs, but also our pets, our dogs and our cats. And it's very thoughtful. And I want to thank all these organizations, in addition to all the various departments of government in the Bahamas and Jamaica that put together this particular package. I want to point out something. There are some people who are getting in things like canned foods. And though there are no duties on them and no charges, no handling charges, I don't want you to get frustrated if you bring in things like corned beef and tuna and sardine and sausages. I don't want you to say that the customs is seizing them, because the customs is not seizing them. What is happening is that the veterinary division, animal health, public health, they're requesting clearly as part of the law that you fill out the requisite form which deals with health matters, because they're interested to knowing where these items originate, where were they manufactured. They have to look at the expiry date. If they have any suspicion, they may have to test. And very importantly, to be able to trace if there is any consumption which creates difficulties, they look to trace, to identify, so that public health, animal health, that we can deal with the issue in a very scientific manner. I just want to indicate that to persons who are bringing things in. We have to make sure that the elemental laws of the land, those relating to our health and so on, and everything else with accountability and transparency, that they're followed. I just want to make that point. It may be frustrating sometimes to someone who has to bring to when they import these things, but the supermarkets know that. As a matter of course, they have to do these health checks. I just want to say that. I also want to speak very much to the question of I must say, Dion, you really have to get accustomed to talk while you have the earphones on, because I feel I speak more freely and my voice is different than when I have them on. You who are professionals, you get accustomed to it.
Well, you can use them, Prime Minister, when you're taking a call.
Yes. But yeah, the air, nose, and throat, they're all
Connected.
They're all connected. I want to speak something about COVID. You know, we had an 11th death. This is an elderly gentleman who was in the isolation center, 87 years old. And of course, he had certain severe comorbidities, certain pre-existing conditions. And that reminds us that COVID, though it is not an automatic death sentence, as almost automatic, like, for instance, Ebola and HIV and AIDS in the early period, before they got the requisite medication to help to make persons with HIV and AIDS live a long time. But it can kill. And even though it doesn't kill you, COVID, it's a serious illness. It can debilitate you, because there's something called long COVID. And Dr. Thompson and the other health specialists have been talking about this, and it's well researched, that it could affect your lungs, it could affect your heart, it could affect, in some cases, I'm told, even accelerate your diabetes, and can create difficulties even in relation to cancer of the mammaries. I've been so advised. So that we have to be careful with it. And long before we got the vaccine, we were making the point that repeatedly, that to address COVID properly, we have to do early identification. We have to do the testing. We have to do the contact tracing. We have to do the quarantining or the isolation. We have tested already about 45,000 persons in our country. And this includes people who have come in. There are persons in shelters who are refusing to be tested. I say to you, this is something dangerous. Your refusal is dangerous to your health, to that of the community. I'm not getting yet to vaccination. I'm talking about testing. Half of the people who have COVID do not have symptoms. I want to repeat that. Half of the people who have COVID do not have symptoms. They're asymptomatic. Others will have symptoms. The cold, the cough, the wheeziness in the head, and all the rest of it. So I am urging everybody to get tested, and especially in the shelter. I was amazed to find out that when there's someone who you know is doing a karaoke who had some pre-existing condition, danced and fell and died. Person said that it was COVID, but it was not COVID. The person didn't die of COVID because the PCR test showed that the person didn't have COVID. But even while that rumor swirled and people in the particular shelter where this person died, it was amazing that people were there refusing to take the test. I'm not talking yet about vaccination, to take the test. We're seeing at Stubbs 2 days ago. There are 5 persons at the shelter tested positive. 4 persons in the shelter and 1 who is not at the shelter all the time, who goes and comes, given his own duties. Now, it is true that we have been fortunate, and the Ministry of Health has been doing good work to help to contain this matter. But as was shown at the time of the Christmas last year, it is so easy for a few persons, including those who are asymptomatic, who have COVID, to spread it like wildfire. Remember, there was a big spike, and we had to take certain measures to clamp it down, and we successfully did that. Now, I can't see the reason that you don't want to be tested. It is important for your health, for persons who are interacting with you, and for persons who are with you in the shelter, or those who are crowded in homes, particularly in those homes where individuals are now, you have more persons in the family than usual, in the family house than usual, because people have generously taken in family, friends, and even strangers. So please test. And I'm going further and asking you, pleading with you to take the vaccine. It is important for your health. We have only had 13% of the population who were vaccinated. I know that some persons have some queries about the AstraZeneca vaccine. But all the scientific reports would tell you with crystal clarity that the risks, any risks involved with AstraZeneca are minimal and the benefits are huge. For any of these vaccines, they reduce the markedly transmission. They reduce the possibility very significantly of you getting seriously ill, and certainly reduce the prospects immensely of you dying with COVID. So I'm urging. The chief medical officer has said to me that there are lots of people who are saying they will take the Sputnik. Some of them say they want to take the Sputnik, which she took, which Roger took, which Comrade Ralph took. Well, if that is true, remember I had written the Russian authorities for in relation to the Sputnik, and we have received an offer to purchase. Well, they've sent a draft contract for us to purchase 50,000 treatments. That is to say, both components, the first and second jab. And there's just something which we have to clarify on the contract. I had a meeting with the CMO on Sunday, and she sent off that that request for a clarification on something, not about the vaccine itself, about the contractual terms. And while she's done that, the AG's chambers would be looking at the document. I have to call the Russian ambassador sometime today to tell him that they will hear from us almost, very soon in relation to the purchasing of these vaccines. But the AstraZeneca, which we have to bear in mind that they expire towards the end of May, between the 27th and 31st of May. So, we have made the decision that at a particular point in time, we'll give other Caribbean countries doses of AstraZeneca if they want them. And at least one country, I think, I've been advised, has indicated that it may wish to get some of them. But I just want to say we are at the stage now. We are on the verge of getting the 50,000 treatments for the Sputnik doses 1 and doses 2. I want to speak to certain matters in the shelters and the provision of food, in the provision of food for those who are in homes, evacuees who are in homes, in private homes, and also for some persons in the red zone, in the orange zone, who are having challenges, who are having challenges coping with certain things. We've gone past the water stage. Except to say this about water. The water is fit to drink. Yesterday, someone called me and said that they haven't had any drinking water. I said, but do you have water? Yes. I said, well, you can drink the water. It's safe. The one coming through the pipe. And she said, well, 3 people told her that it's not safe. I said, the people who told you so, who are these people? I said, didn't you hear Garth Saunders, the head of CWSA, on the program, which I have, and otherwise, no, she didn't hear. I said, but you must listen to the authorities. Don't tell you what people say. I say, right now, I'm having a cup of black coffee, and the water used in it is the water from the tap. And she said, oh. I say, I also, from time to time, drink from the tap, but I also have bottled water. This has been the case even before the volcano. But you can drink the water from the tap. It's safe. It has been tested here and overseas. And I reported, this is the second time in a few days. Over the weekend, it came to my attention, and I spoke to Garth Saunders about it. And he said that they were going to do an information campaign about the safety of the water. Apparently, some persons haven't had bottled water, and particularly when we didn't have any water, don't want to drink any other water other than no bottled water. But the water is safe. It's good quality water. I wouldn't say that unless I was informed about the tests done locally and those done regionally, internationally on our water. The other thing I want to make, a point I want to make about food. In the shelters, I'm urging strongly those persons who are catering. And it happens not so much with the persons in the kitchen, though it has happened on the spot, but there are some people who are catering and taking in food. Try to bring the food on time, because you can have problems. Not only people like diabetics and the like who have to eat on time, but if people are accustomed to eat somewhere between 12 and 1 o'clock, if the food comes at 2 o'clock, it's a problem. And it's a problem for several reasons. You might have cooked the food earlier, and if you have to transport it a distance, I don't know whether the transportational arrangements which you have are all in order. But if you cook food, you leave it and you transport it in a hot vehicle. When it reaches the destination, it may not be of the same quality. Not that you can't eat it. Not that something is wrong with it. But you have to bear those things in mind, please. The other thing I want to ask, people who have been engaged to provide, private operators who have been engaged by one entity or the other, or government or any private sector, any NGO entity. I haven't seen it, but I understand that there's competition on social media. Whose lunch is better than whose lunch, and whose lunch is bigger than whose lunch. I mean, that is not a productive activity, in my judgment. They may disagree with me, but I'm a particular. I've always spoke my mind, but I'm a particular stage in my life that I speak it even more freely. Particularly in matters which are, I think are germane, important to any particular exercise in which we are doing. You just produce your food, your best meal that you can produce in all the circumstances. You know, let's cut out this. It's almost juvenile competing with one another. I haven't seen them, but I was told, so I don't know what they are saying. But the idea to me is one which we should avoid. Let's just don't allow other people on social media to goad you into doing these things. One of the reasons why you have so many more people in the shelters than originally is that the quality of food and the treatment in the shelters, broadly speaking, the quality is, people are realizing the quality. And some people who are at home, they say, well, it's better if I go in the shelter. And some people in the orange zone. And some who went into private homes say, look, it's better for me to stay in the shelter. In all the circumstances, they feel better, of course. While you have approximately 7,000 persons in the shelters, you have a similar number registered in private homes. But there are more, and there are people who haven't registered. And I just want to urge those who haven't registered yet to register, because we're trying to have a proper inventory of those who are in the homes to assist with food packages, and there are lots of food packages going out. I don't want, however, in all of this, for 50 people to be missed or 100 people to be missed, either because the information was given and somewhere gets lost, slipped through the cracks. If that happened, call Nemo again. They have a better communication system than on the first day, for instance, or on the second day. We have a whole big area, I must say about 30 people. I visited them on Friday with the computers and more telephone lines and so on and so forth. A lot of good volunteers. Public servants who have been assigned, but who also volunteered, and teachers and other persons just say, yes, we want to help. And we're grateful for all of that. I also want to urge that persons who are being served either in the shelters or in private homes or in the orange zone where people bring along food and the like. In fact, some food is being delivered in the lower regions of the red zone, like in Georgetown and Dixon and Chapman's Village, the Langley Park area. Over the last couple of days, I've been advised. It is wise, of course, for people not to be going up over the Rabuka River, or certainly to go down to Fitzhughes and Richmond and the like. I went down there on Saturday. And I've seen what it is. But I'm asking persons also to be reasonable. As soon as there is a hiccup arises, a problem arises, a torrent of complaints are ushered forth in all different directions. Look, there may be an odd person here and there who are in this business who don't have their heart and mind in it. But the overwhelming majority of people are good people. And sometimes they may make mistakes. If there's a problem, we solve the problem. But these are individuals with families, husbands and wives and children. And we are in danger of, if persons who they are serving, some of them become wholly unreasonable, you're going to induce in some people who are volunteering a sense that, look, this is an ungrateful business. Why am I killing up myself? I'm taking more harassment for nothing. And you can have volunteer burnout, and will break down the social solidarity which exists at the moment in the country. I want to mention that. I want people to realize this. I also want to ask people, if supplies are being brought, let us say the distribution of food packages, I don't want to be getting text messages at 11 o'clock in the night, which is telling me, you know, comrade, the people pass where we are and gone up into the village and they didn't drop off anything down here and they're only sharing out for certain people. It is not so. You can't... People can't bring the things, all of these things to your doorstep. There's no machinery for that. And if you can text me at 11 o'clock the night, tell me that 3-4 trucks pass with boxes. You can make a telephone call where they're going to and say, what time are you all going to share stuff? And if you're in need, you just walk the 5 minutes or the 7 minutes and go. By calling me 11 o'clock in the night, when in fact, the people were at that very moment still sharing out. And for those who have problems in terms of incapacity and so on, the people who are doing this thing free, volunteering, they're not being paid, take them to you. And I also want to say, if somebody brings a package or a box of water, a case of water into a particular area, and you see them down below, and you're in the porch, a strong young man or young woman in the family, just come down and help and get it. Don't tell them, bring it up. You're going to induce in good people fatigue, and they're going to choose the teeth and say, well, look, comrade, I can't take this thing anymore from some people. At the same time, I want to advise those who are distributing to be fair and reasonable in all circumstances. If you're distributing packages, food packages, for heaven's sake, don't go and give every member of your family a box of 25 or 30 pounds of food. Because it's not fair. There are other people who also need. And when you're doing it, I don't want you to do it as though because you're helping somebody, you can treat them in any way. You have to be sensitive to people. So I'm talking about a two-way street in building this solidarity. A couple of other things which I have to discuss of a practical nature. Now, there are persons who have called my office, and they have also called Nemo, because they have people in them who they volunteer with, who they volunteer to take, friends or family or even strangers, that they are asking if government would pay the electricity and water bill. No. You have to be reasonable. There's not money for that sort of a thing. Already, nobody is going to cut you off, and arrangements can be made as to how you pay it. And some people who come there with you, they and you have to make arrangements as to how, I don't know how much more the light bill is or how much more the water bill is. But there has to be a sense of reasonableness on what are some of the demands which are being made. And then evacuation. I got a report yesterday from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I want to make the point that the persons who are in the official evacuation program in the OECS territories and in associated territories like OECS territories like Tortola and...
Prime Minister, we've just got word that it's time for Senator Peters. So
to make her statement to the United Nations Security.
And further, we extend our gratitude to the prohibition against the attack destruction, removal, or rendering useless objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population remains a core tenet of international humanitarian law as enshrined in the Geneva Conventions. Military objectives should never take precedence over the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. Far too often, both state and non-state actors have violated well-established principles of law of armed conflict, particularly those of distinction, proportionality, and precaution. Sanctions and ill-designed counter-terrorism measures continue to stymie both development and humanitarian access in many locales, bringing untold suffering upon the local population in an attempt to achieve narrow political objectives. To be sure, counter-terrorism operations are sometimes necessary to protect people and preserve a country's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. However, both sanctions and counter-terrorism measures must comply with all principles of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. The socio-economic impact of armed conflict often gives rise to perilous humanitarian crises. When coupled with climate change, severe weather events, and environmental degradation, these conflicts have a dramatic impact on civilians, particularly women and children, and extend further, impeding the overall recovery of the countries affected. We have seen the reality of these effects across protracted conflicts on this Council's agenda. In Yemen, the health system is crippled, leaving half of the facilities operational, rendering the country ill-equipped to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. A similar grave situation exists in Syria, where 10 years of war have left over 13 million Syrians in need of multi-dimensional forms of humanitarian assistance, including shelter following mass displacements and basic health care. In conflict-affected areas of Somalia, water and sanitation infrastructure have been destroyed, reducing access to clean water and increasing the risk of preventable diseases such as cholera. The destruction that occurs as a result of deliberate and indiscriminate attacks hinders efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The destruction of resources needed for civilian life, living, and production is causing unbearable suffering for too many people around the world. It is only through staunch compliance with the principles of international law that civilians and civilian infrastructure will be afforded the protection they rightly deserve. We call on all parties to conflict to safeguard water stations, healthcare facilities, and other essential infrastructure necessary to reduce vulnerability and promote development. The rehabilitation of infrastructure already devastated must also be prioritized to alleviate dire humanitarian situations. In this regard, we continue to encourage the international community to contribute to the restoration of critical infrastructure in countries affected by armed conflict, without which millions will be forced to remain dependent on humanitarian assistance for basic necessities. Reconstruction is also a necessary element which facilitates the safe, voluntary, and dignified return of refugees and internally displaced persons to their places of origin. Acts committed in violation of international law must not be tolerated under any circumstances and must be met with condemnation from the international community. The link between justice and peace has long been recognized. As such, we reiterate our call for perpetrators of these abhorrent acts to be held accountable. Civilians across the globe have suffered as a result of geopolitical dynamics over which they have neither influence nor control. We therefore call on parties to conflicts to demonstrate the political will required to achieve lasting peace and stability. This council has a responsibility to advocate for the victims of armed conflict. We must continue to raise our voices to ensure their protection and to make certain that the international community honors its legal and moral responsibilities to safeguard the survival of people impacted by conflicts around the world. Mr. President, I thank you.
You've been listening to an address to the United Nations on the protection of civilians in armed conflict by Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Kissel Peters. Prime Minister?
Well, the Minister of State and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Kissel Alyssa Peters, made a very important statement at the Security Council at the United Nations on our behalf. The subject today was an open debate on how do you address conflict areas with humanitarian concerns and, you know, the application of international law and related issues. When people see the voice of reason, the voice of concern for those who would suffer in such circumstances, and we don't, as we say in our mantra, is that we are friends of all and we strive for a better world. We are not, you notice, we are not taking anybody's side in any of these conflicts. We are taking the side of those who are suffering and taking the side on behalf of international law and international human rights law. And taking the side of multilateral activity, not unilateral sanctions against people. And even when you have counterterrorism measures, they can't just be done arbitrarily. They must be done within a particular legal regime, because even in war, there is law. So that it's, I'm very proud of the youngsters, the young people, really, the young professionals. Kisal herself is in her early 30s, and those at the United Nations Security Council who would have worked with her and her staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to craft this particular speech representing the foreign policy of our government on this important matter. It's a joy to watch it all coming together with all of these magnificent young people. It's beautiful, beautiful. Back to the issue with us. I was talking about the evacuees. Well, yesterday actually I had a meeting with Kisal and also the Permanent Secretary in relation to the matter of evacuation of persons who want to go to the OECS, other OECS countries, and to go to Anguilla, BVI, and also a few to Sabre, because Sabre had indicated they take a few. None of the evacuation has actually started in a formal sense. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is looking at the transportation arrangements and so on and so forth. And we will announcements would be made. But in the meantime, and the numbers, the persons whom we are supported in the evacuation are persons who are from the red zone, and there may be cases from the orange zone, the circumstances they had to evacuate. And those who may be outside of those areas, but who, as a result of a medical condition certified by a doctor, the issue of the ash and the like. And each country, remember, when you go, they'd support just for a few months. Of course, you go to an OECS country, you can go without the official program. With an ID card, you don't need a work permit or anything, you can go. But if you're going and you don't have anybody, you need the support system of the receiving state. There's some people who have chosen to go because they have friends or family outside of any official evacuation program. All I ask is that if you're doing that, still please inform the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because you may need the state over there still to support you with some educational issues and so on. Even though your friends or your family will take care of you, it would help if you inform the Ministry of Foreign Affairs so the ministry can say to the receiving country, for instance, St. Lucia, in which people have been going to families, say, look, there are these 20 persons who are coming, these 30 persons who are coming. I know, for instance, a particular set of Christian believers in a particular denomination have friends and family, and they've gone to them. If they tell the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they make their own arrangements, that's fine. But we are doing it because of the La Soufriere eruption, so that they can inform the authorities nevertheless. Even though you're not part and parcel of an official evacuation program, and I said the numbers are a trickle, really, but I give that advice. Those are the issues. There are others. Today we have a meeting of the National Emergency Management Council. A lot of things I've spoken about before. I was hoping to have a meeting of the Mercy Committee to deal with some things, but I may not, all the documentation there, I may not be able to get it done for this week. There's so much pressure of work on an ongoing basis every day. But I'll take questions which have come in, and then leave. I'll take a few.
Prime Minister, there's a question which we received earlier this morning. Persons are concerned about their mortgage facilities at the Bank of SVG in particular.
And I didn't get that.
Red zone. Persons in the red zone are concerned about their mortgage facility at the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines from the red zone. If you can provide any words.
Well, I think what they should do, because of COVID, the facility had been extended, and Camilo had announced that, and the central bank had announced that. And I will urge immediately that the COVID issue would have covered them in any event for the next few months. But in relation to this volcano, for a period continued beyond the other period extended. I think the period comes to an end either in June or in September for the moratorium. So I think those individual persons should go to their banks or credit unions, and within the context of that overall moratorium. But it is something which we can have the Ministry of Finance have a conversation with all the banks.
There's another question with the advice given this morning for persons up to particular areas on the Windward and Leeward side.
Yes.
Returning to their homes to do cleanup and to return to the shelters. I think persons are asking if there can be pipe-borne water returned to the taps so that can assist in the process of cleaning.
Okay. Clearly, in the red zone, you're going to have a difficulty with that because they'll have to deal with the catchment areas. In the orange zones, where the water is returned. For instance, I don't think that CWSA has done any work yet on Perseverance. God can call in and say, and Perseverance supplies the water in Dixon Valley, the Monbentic, Caratal, Georgetown, Chester Cottage. Jennings supplies from Byra coming down. Jennings has been dealt with. Of course, the systems, even though the systems are connected, I don't know whether they can put the water on. Certainly to be served from Jennings. I don't know how much that will help, but that will probably only help a couple of communities. The water systems in Fancy and Sandy Bay, they will have to go to the sources, CWSA to deal with that. But I could understand that point. One of the things which we are doing is that I asked Mr. Jackson, the Director General of Finance and Planning, to indicate to the customs that for a period of 3-4 months, so certainly immediately, I don't know if Mr. Jackson told them 3 or 4 months, to give the relief on water pumps and on pressure hoses, the tax relief. So that is something where people overseas, family members, can help, because you're not going to be able to buy the water pumps here very easily, or the power hoses, so that you can go to a nearby stream and get water and pump it. Not everybody would be able to do that, obviously, but I could see that concern. But there would be a practical issue of getting back the water supply. I can raise that with Garth, but it's an important consideration, clearly, because, and I want to say that I've asked the Ministry of Works to give some practical advice as to how people should deal with roofs, because I see some people with some shovels digging into the sand on the roofs, particularly where the ash, some rain has fallen and it solidifies a little. You may well be taking off the ash, but mashing up your roof, depending on the type of roof you have and how far you go down with these shovels. I understand too that there are a number of teams which are volunteering to do cleanups, professionals. And I'm asking them through this medium to be reasonable, because some of the prices I hear some of them charging is wholly unreasonable. It's like they're gouging. Don't gouge people in these difficulties. Don't gouge them. I mean, it's unfair. It's unconscionable. But what happens is this: disasters bring out the best in most people, and they bring out the worst in some people. That has been the experience of human affairs from time immemorial. But I'm asking, now that we have modern communications, I'm asking, let us work together with this in solidarity, social solidarity. I come back to that very important phenomenon to help us both in this period and in the period, this humanitarian relief period, and also in the period of recovery and reconstruction.
From a health perspective, Prime Minister, there is a concern about persons wearing the correct protective mask, especially as they return to do cleanup work.
Absolutely. And lots of advice need to be given on that. This afternoon I want to find out from the experts who are on the ground from the United Nations, to find out whether we have been given as yet because the professionals are dealing with this thing. I left the meeting last week with them, started it, and left our professionals to work with them. I want this to be done in a proper, rational, sensible manner. So I'm sure we'll get some information shortly on all of these things. But it is sensible to wear protective clothing, obviously, a mask, and particular types of masks.
Understand it's raining buckets in the countryside and in the mountains, Prime Minister.
Well, that is dangerous for mud flows. You heard the seismologist said that recorded at least one laha, that's a mud flow, on the eastern side, the northeastern side. And if it's raining buckets up there, we're going to have some challenges with mud flows coming down, making it all in the valleys in the northeast, making it all the more important that people be very careful at Raboka and going north of Raboka. So that would be my advice, strong advice.
For persons who have, from the orange zone, who have left the shelters and have gone back home, will any form of assistance be provided for them in terms of food items and whatever they need as they resettle into their homes?
That continues. That continues. We are doing that. Some people would have a need, and some people wouldn't have a need. For instance, if you have a paid salary monthly, and you're not in any way, even though you have been in the reds, you have evacuated and you're staying with people or even going to the shelters, you should be having less expenses while you're drawing your salary still. Unless, of course, you decide that when you leave in the red zone or the orange zone to rent a place which is very expensive, well, then you put yourself in more expense. But if you live in with friends or families, or if you go into the shelters and you have a monthly salary coming in, and you get it whether you're working or not, you should not need as much help, clearly, as somebody who don't have a livelihood. And there would be a period where we have to provide supports in terms of food, and we also have to provide in terms of other social safety net supports. And then when we come to the reconstruction period, clearly, we have to, there's some of the housing needs which we have to work with individuals with.
All right, I think, Prime Minister, we can probably end here.
But I want to give the assurance that the government is going to be there. There are some people who are forming the impression that the government is getting, to use your expression in a different context, buckets of money. In the humanitarian stage, though some resources are coming to us, you will notice a lot of resources are going to regional organizations and international organizations, Red Cross, CDMA, other World Food Program and so on, all very important, and they are working with us, and we are very grateful for the work that they are doing with us. But we have to mobilize resources ourselves as a government to be doing some of the things which some persons are asking for or about. And we are doing some of that. and some pledges have been made, but not every pledge results in the money coming immediately or soon. It may be a little bit down the road. So fortunately, we have some resources from the contingency fund and some other resources which we had negotiated as soft loans. And we are doing that with the CDB, and we'll do that with the World Bank. But we look very much if we can get significant grant resources from our friends and allies overseas, which is all part and parcel of the mobilization effort. And say, for instance, in Canada, is the result of that letter which I wrote. I've written letters to many governments, and important governments too, about what is happening, and I have more to do, and I try to make contact personally also. As you heard in the case of Canada, I spoke to the foreign minister. In the case of, I also wrote to the prime minister. And I've done that in other countries. I'm not reporting everybody whom I've spoken to and everybody whom I've written to. But the country knows me by now, and they know that I will be very vigorous in that regard.
We've got a caller on the line, Prime Minister. I'm not sure if the person's still there. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, maybe the person has hung up. I know that several persons have asked this question in instances where their roofs have collapsed and they've got appliances from some of the stores in town. What can be done in a situation like that, especially if you're still paying for these appliances?
Well, I suspect that the people who own the hire purchase company are going to want their payments. They're going to want their payments. Some of them may give some relief. That's an individual company's decision. But then, of course, people are going to have a requirement for replacements. You would remember in one flood in 2013, a particular company gave us. Remember, I was asked by this company what they can help us with, and I said, what I'd like you to help me with is stove, refrigerators, and beds. Mattresses, sorry. Well, there's no shortage of mattresses now. But I suspect some fridges and some stoves. We will have to address some of that. I don't know yet the number. But all of these things in the recovery period are things which we are getting our heads around and to do possible costings. Before the end of this week, certainly tomorrow the Minister of Finance no doubt will give us and his officials the preliminary outline of what they're looking at the cabinet, and they will do I'll do some more detailed work with them. The discussion is ongoing. I've had some discussion with them already. And to be in time for May the 11th, to go to the Finance Committee before that date, circulate it to the opposition and other members of Parliament, all members of Parliament, and then to the Finance Committee, and then of course the matter of the supplementary appropriation bill and supplementary estimates.
Prime Minister, just before you go, I would want you to clear this up, because I see already that it's getting some traction. You did not say categorically that persons should return to the red zones or anything like that.
I've never said that,
so I want you to.
And the person said this. Look, people must listen to what I'm saying, and don't hear what other people tell you that I say. And they heard the conversation that I had with Professor Robertson, where I said that I'm seeking your advice for the framing of public policy, which we will discuss further this evening at NEMO, and for the cabinet to decide on, but that up to Caratal you can go and do your cleaning up, but the you know, in the red zone begins at that area from Mount Young Bridge, and that people in the orange zone, and we name the villages Chester, Byra, and so on, because all you got there is the ash, and there will be no chance of any any mud flows, that it would be, since the ash is no longer an issue, at least for the moment, that to be cleaning up. And if you were to go up into the red zone to do any cleaning, you do short periods of time and get out. Don't stay overnight. That was explicit. And that Professor Robertson says that the Rose Hall, and I said to Trumuk, I said, what about the Rose Bank? They said, yes. I said, Pity Bodell. He said, no, let it just clean, and Chateaubriand, they could go and come and clean, but don't stay down there. People must listen. There's no confusion as to what was said. It is just the same thing I talk about. People didn't hear what God Saunders say, but Tom, Eric, Mary, and Elizabeth tell Eleanor, and Eleanor ain't hear nothing. For all you know, Tom, Eric, Elizabeth, and Beatrice didn't hear what God say either. But hear somebody say something over here, something. And of course, they put it on social media, they do all kind of things. And fortunately, in my case, I don't allow my mind to get cockfuffled with any of that. I speak. If I say something and I say something in error, I will come and correct it. But I did not say that you must return to the red zone to go and live. I did not say that. I did not. What was being discussed is cleaning.
Yeah.
And I also said that for persons in the orange zone, they clean and they can go back, because that's what the advice which Professor Robertson gave. So let's just be clear as to what was said and what was not said. But persons know that too. But by pushing the envelope doesn't make me say what I didn't say. I will only speak on the basis of the professional advice. Thank you very much. I'm glad I get that opportunity to reiterate.
You've been listening to Ian Soufriere, the morning edition with Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Gonsalves. Earlier on in the program, we had seismologist Dr. Roderick, Rod Stewart, volcano seismologist, and Professor Dr. Richard Robertson, lead scientist monitoring the Soufriere volcano in St. Vincent Town, the Grenadines. All those stations, radio, television, and social media platforms who joined us for our program this morning. Thank you.